is K-12 Tech Talk. K-12 Tech Talk. The podcast by K-12 Techs for K-12 Techs. Real conversations, real arguments, and real banter on trending K-12 technology topics and issues.
Live from New Hampshire, this is the K-12 Tech Talk podcast. I am Josh, and with me in New Hampshire is Chris.
In person,
and Mark.
In person.
This is the first time we've ever recorded in person together.
Make awkward direct eye contact.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not gonna.
Josh, look at me.
What?
Look at me, Josh.
So yeah, we're here in New Hampshire. It is cold and rainy, but that is not taking away from the content that is being talked about here at the New Hampshire CTO Clinic. And we got to meet Mark in person for the first time and stay at his cabin, and he didn't kill us.
We're still alive.
Yeah.
Yet.
Yet. What?
I didn't kill you yet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Chris shipped Mark the mixer ahead of time, and Mark has done a bunch of, shall we say, enhancing the
Yeah, I'm not happy about it.
the mixer.
Nice. I didn't say that.
Mark put a bunch of Chris audio on here.
Oh, come on. Come on, guys. Oh, come on.
So yeah, this is hilarious. So what's the couple days been like, guys?
Well, cold and rainy.
Yeah.
But really fun to be able to get to know you. We started off with a car ride.
Yeah, that took forever because there was so much traffic.
I introduced them to Boston traffic.
Yeah, Josh and I got here. Mark showed us a dumpster, like a truck,
Well,
It's called a trash truck.
trash truck.
I
That
didn't
was
show
really
it
cool,
to
Mark.
you. We were behind it in traffic.
Like he showed us a trash truck, like we don't have those in Missouri. And then he's like, and here's a tunnel. Oh, come on. He showed us some tunnels.
Well, then so then we took.
And he described the paint.
Yeah.
We took a visit. Some people on my team wanted to meet you guys.
Yes, they did.
So we popped into my office real quick.
Yeah, that was awesome.
After we got pizza.
And we walked in, and my team had prepared a surprise for us.
So the mark on the buffalo picture was blown up into what, 2 foot by 3 foot photos and pasted all over the walls.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. The entire office was decorated with photos of me, of memes from various episodes of the podcast.
Nice.
And the thing that drives me the crazy part is they clearly did this outside of work because we don't have a printer that big. So I couldn't nail them on like you use district technology to do this. Nope, they had clearly gone out of their way to print out giant pictures of me on a buffalo and hang it all around the office.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
Can I tell you that we received a listener email
Oh no.
from someone in the tech department?
It's
Go easy on Mark now. Next question. Do I need to update my resume after decorating his office? And if so, any openings in Missouri?
there are several openings in Missouri right now.
Do you have any guesses? We can unpack this. Do you think you know who did it?
Unpack.
Yeah, I know exactly who it's going to be. And I think he'll do well in Missouri.
Do you have a first name?
I think he's been on the podcast before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was on episode 100.
Who would that be?
Joseph.
You could be right.
He says with disdain.
Yeah, in the office, his name is Joe. It's now Joseph.
It'll all be by the book now.
I felt like because you never laughed or smiled.
Oh,
through
no.
That.
No.
And then you actually ripped the papers off the walls.
Yeah.
Was that for show towards us to try to show that you do have dominance in the office?
My face was blown up 2 feet by 2 feet and put everywhere. Even the help desk dashboard, instead of looking at like network outages, they're looking at my face instead. So
Well, you were off that day. They had to have your face somewhere, right?
yeah.
Yeah. And the best part of it were the representatives from the superintendent's office that came down and
Oh
witnessed
yeah.
some of
No. It did not just stay within the tech department. The soup's office came down. I was like, what? Why are you on a buffalo?
Which is a great question.
It is a great question.
I went to Yellowstone last year. That's what we did.
Yeah. So, anyways,
Yeah, so trash truck, 2 tunnels.
Yeah. Mark's cabin in the woods.
Yep.
In the White Mountains in New Hampshire.
and now this beautiful resort
Yes.
on the coast of Winnipesaukee.
Which apparently Jimmy Fallon spends time here in the summer, and Drew Barrymore and Mitt Romney has a place up here.
Yeah.
I feel very NPR-ish with this microphone.
Yeah. We're not used to recording like this.
No. So what do we got coming up on this episode? We interview several people, right? Josh and Pam here from New Hampshire. They're two of the big drivers behind some of the student data privacy alliances here in New Hampshire. I almost said Missouri. And then we talk with Neal, who everybody at this conference, we had dinner last night. Everybody talks about Neal as the cyber guy. Apparently Neal is like the go-to tech director here in New Hampshire that knows a lot about cyber and helps out other districts around the state with cyber stuff. Mm-hmm. So we hope you enjoy this episode, and thanks to New Hampshire CTO Clinic for having us up. We really enjoyed our time, and hopefully we can come back. So we are here at the New Hampshire CTO Clinic, and we have with us, Mark. This is the first time Mark and I are in the same room together, which is pretty fantastic.
We're here.
We just, I did not hear you.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. So we just wrapped up our keynote address, and we have two attendees from the event here that are, I guess you could say, rock stars in this space with data privacy and IT leadership in New Hampshire. So I will let them introduce themselves. We'll start with Josh.
All right. Thanks for having me, and thanks for coming all the way out here, guys.
Yeah.
My name is Josh. I'm the IT director in the Oyster River Cooperative School District. We're about just over 2,100 students, and I've been there about 11 years now.
Wow. Okay.
And I'm Pam McLeod. I'm with the Concord School District in New Hampshire. It's about the third largest district in New Hampshire.
Okay. Give us an idea how many students that...
We have about 4,100 students plus a CTE center, so we're up over 4,500 students as well. And this is my 19th year in education.
Wow.
9 years in Concord, and before that I was 10 years at one of those small K-8 500 student schools.
Okay.
I'm also a school board member at New Hampshire.
We heard last time we were talking to you that a lot of school districts in New Hampshire, are very small, rural. It's almost like a very decentralized
Live
state.
free or die.
Live free or die.
Local control. Yes.
Yeah, so Missouri's local control, but I think you guys, from our discussions last night, it seems like New Hampshire is taking that up a notch or two from a local control standpoint.
For sure.
So tell us about what your efforts have been around student data privacy here in New Hampshire, and what, again, last night at dinner you were talking about the commissioner. There's new things coming from the Department of Education. So give us a little bit of that.
It's a little complicated. I'll start with a little bit of a timeline.
Okay.
In New Hampshire, they passed the data privacy law in 2018. We call it HB 1612, which is now an RSA. And even as they were working on the bill, COSA notified us about it at the national level. And so we actually got involved with talking with the sponsors of the bill as it was going through the process. And we're able to kind of water it down a little bit, make it more palatable for schools. It was pretty intense. As it passed, it was one of the few pieces of legislation around the country. I think at the time it was the first one that had minimum security standards. So it passed. It had this reference to this Department of Ed needs to create these minimum security standards. It's the standards by which school districts need to operate, as well as we need to hold our vendors accountable to those standards. Mm-hmm. So it passed, and then we all sort of panicked. We weren't quite sure. The smaller school districts especially, nobody kind of knew how to handle especially the vendor vetting part of it. So Josh was friendly with Steve Smith down in Cambridge, who does so much work on the national level with SDPC and A4L.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're kind of lucky we have this guy who started the SDPC. Very close. He's presented at this conference before, so we had already known him pretty well and said, well, this might be a good way to start meeting some of these privacy standards, because these small school districts in New Hampshire are going to have a really hard time reaching out to these vendors and actually getting a response. Please
Yeah.
sign this data privacy agreement. And so I think at that time there was 24 state alliances, with Texas, California being big ones, and obviously Massachusetts. So we felt that seemed to be really a good avenue to start the work. Because the way the law is written is there's these security standards, and then that wonderful language that, at least in New Hampshire, it's everywhere, it's meet or exceed the minimum standards.
Right.
And it was, the vendors had to provide an assurance that they would meet or exceed the minimum standards. And so how do you get a vendor to do that? And so the DPA seemed like a really good vehicle to do that. So
Was the original intent of the bill that each district would write its own DPA, or is that
Yeah,
the state
well-
would come out with?
No, they didn't provide any funding to the state to do anything.
Okay.
We did reach out to the state very first thing, and they basically said, we have to deal with this too. They had to develop those minimum security standards.
Right.
We don't have any funding to help you. We were hoping they would kind of that was our first check. We were hoping they would take the ball and organize all of us and sort of help lead us through this, but live free or die, that's not how it works in New Hampshire. So we spent the next 6 months just trying to figure out what to do, how to organize this. We have a state CISO, and the person at the time came from a federal background, and he developed the minimum security standards based on NIST 800-171. So it's a subset of 42 of those standards, so it's a smaller bite. But he was great because he brought those to us. He let us take a look at them. We had some discussions about them before they went to the state and were adopted and finalized. And after that, we've even gone through a couple of rounds. During the pandemic, we went through a couple of rounds of how do we make it so that these more commercial companies, PandaDoc was one, it's an e-signature company.
Yeah.
They have SOC2 certification. So we thought we developed an addendum so that vendors with these nationwide certifications could just sort of get a pass because their certifications exceed our standards anyway.
Sure.
So they didn't have to go through our checklist to sign the data privacy agreement.
And the gentleman that came up with the standards, if you look across the spectrum, you have the CIS Top 18, you have NIST CSF. He did a lot of research into what education records fall under, and that's how he arrived at NIST 800-171. It's really interesting because it seems like there's so many different standards that people can follow. It feels kind of like CISA's kind of going with the top 18 for schools, but
Yeah.
I think New York, Texas are doing some variation of NIST CSF. So it's pretty interesting. And like Pam said, I'm pretty sure it was the first legislation nationally that tied privacy and security together. I know when you guys had Doug on, that was kind of one of his points was everyone's talking about privacy but not security.
Right.
But that was, I think, something unique in our law was that those two were together.
So how has adoption been from districts that might be smaller districts that have a one-man shop, or what's that pinch point been, or what's that struggle been like? Have they been successful in getting these agreements? Obviously, with DPAs, you can piggyback off of other agreements. Are they primarily doing that, or who's having those tough conversations? Are you guys leading those tough conversations?
We're leading a lot of the tough conversations because we have more staff than some of those districts.
Yeah.
So especially during the pandemic, we were really taking the lead on having those conversations with the vendors. But it's really, we collect $1.10 per student per year from our member districts. We have about 130,000 students in New Hampshire covered under this agreement, which is about 82% roughly of the students in New Hampshire. I don't know what the other districts are doing.
Yeah, that would be a good. Yeah. Do they ever come to conferences and you're able to ask them that, or are those districts that aren't adhering to that kind of, they stay to themselves, or don't like to?
I think. For whatever reason, they're sort of flying under the radar. That first year, Josh and I, we organized, so we use a nonprofit in Massachusetts, the TEC, the Education Cooperative. So we collect these funds, or they collect these funds, and we pay them to do. They have an attorney on staff.
Yeah.
They call the vendors. We're now in a consortium with 5 other states, so that's built up, or 4 other states in New England, so that's built up over time as well. That's really helped our adoption. But that first year, Josh and I spent a lot of time going to every regional superintendent's meeting in New Hampshire. We got the buy-in from the superintendent's executive board. Josh's superintendent, Dr. Morris, was really instrumental in just leading us around, introducing us to people. We made sure we had that buy-in so that it would be more successful. And I'm wondering, the one meeting we missed is probably the region where we have sort
Fewer
of the most
buy-in.
stragglers.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think for anybody who is early on trying to build like an SDPC alliance, or there's states that have them and, maybe they're not as active as other states. I really think what worked out well for us is, number one, our NHCTO group, our COSIN affiliate. We're a tight group. We meet monthly. It's a great group of people. We have a lot of fun. And then from there, we started building strategic partnerships with these other groups, and specifically the Superintendents Association.
And the School Boards Association.
And
I have to give them a shout out.
Yeah.
They were great as well. So we really worked with those other groups. And
so the superintendents knew what we were trying to do. We explained that, this wasn't, we were putting forth kind of this collaborative approach to data privacy instead of everyone trying to do it on their own. We're going to pool our resources, because there's only a couple school districts that even have attorneys on staff.
Right.
Most of us all share common law firms. So the idea was, how do we not pay our law firms multiple times for this work?
For the same project.
And so we had seen, I think at the time in Massachusetts, there was only maybe 10 schools kind of working with this group tech to collaboratively do this. And so we said, well, do you think you could do it in New Hampshire? And, they said, yeah, we'll see, but there can't be that many people that'll jump on board. And I think within the first month of kind of releasing this, we had about 40 districts on board. And so we've really leveraged them and a collaborative approach to, like, we're dealing with one attorney. We're all funneling money into that one attorney. And then we use one of the ladies' name's Rama. She actually is the one that we interface with. She goes out, contacts vendors on our behalf, starts that process, helps the back and forth. So in some ways, a lot of the districts, the heavy lifting, the contacting the vendors is really taken care of. And then, if we run into problems with vendors, we start talking amongst our group, and we've put the pressure on a couple, and there's a couple vendors that wouldn't sign, that when we all said we're not going to renew, that changed their mind.
It's just magic how that works, right? So,
and I just want to give a shout out. Microsoft was our first vendor to sign, which was great. It actually aligned with we have a Microsoft pricing and purchasing consortium as well, which I started when I was in a small district. So it's like, I think it was 2010. It was a while ago. So it aligned with the renewal of that contract. So that was really helpful for us, and they were really great to work with. So we have as large as Microsoft, that's probably our largest, and as small, like we have tiny little vendors. There's a company called Pickup Patrol, which does after-school, parent pickup organization. They're based here in New Hampshire. I think they were developed by students in New Hampshire and then became a company. And
cool.
So, organizations of all sizes, but we have 1,500 different products covered under our GPA. So at this point, it's almost in maintenance mode at this point. And it really has been fantastic, but it's really that collaboration with the other states that has helped us get there.
And you're working on Google, right, to get them to sign?
We've gotten nowhere with Google.
Yeah.
California's
He's
made
on the
most
national board. Yeah.
Progress on it.
Yeah.
So help me understand, how many districts are in New Hampshire?
Oh, good
So
glory.
I want to say it's 130.
Okay.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Okay.
167-ish.
Well, like we
1,000
told you
public
last night,
schools.
you can have a single community with 2 districts in it.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's kind of splits and breaks, and Pam's a school board member where they just consolidated 3 districts into one. So it's kind of constantly changing.
Still 3 districts. We've just consolidated SAU services.
Okay.
So we
There we
just
go.
our central offices are.
So, Pam, you mentioned something a few minutes ago that was really cool about the cybersecurity grant.
Yeah.
The SLTT grant. tell us what New Hampshire did with that grant.
Yeah, well, I have to speak about like our partnerships again, because most of us use Primex, which is our public risk management pool. And they have really, Corey Casey will be here this afternoon from Primex for a presentation. They've really taken the lead in working directly with school districts and municipalities around the state. They've been really awesome. And then we have a forensic first responder, the Adam Group. So they're actually, it's a private company, but they've been tapped as like the state's first responder in cybersecurity incidents. Fantastic. And we have a state CISO. We have a different one now. The new one is Ken Weeks. He's absolutely really awesome to work with as well from the state. So I'm forgetting the original question. Which is
SLTT Cyber Grant.
The Cyber Grant. So they've all been working together with representatives from the schools and the municipalities to help determine how they would spend this money. Obviously, it's limited money in the grand scheme of things. They came up with 3 things. I'm going to try to remember them. One was YubiKeys for everybody who wants them in New Hampshire, public organizations. The second was training. So they have a training. It's like cyber training libraries, certifications.
It's going to be, like a voucher program. So anyone who wants to get like A+ security, they'll provide a voucher for.
That's cool.
And so like if I have a team of 6, so if they wanted to get certified, we could get vouchers for all of them to get certified. And then the last one, I don't think it affects us as much, but all the small communities, they're using personal email accounts and all this crazy stuff. So they're doing a facilitated move to .gov addresses.
Oh, good.
So I don't think that's going to affect us that much. And I'd kind of heard that CISA was wanting to move education to .edus.
That'd be great. I spent some time on higher ed, and they all have .edu, but those are managed by EDUCAUSE. K-12 doesn't have access to EDUCAUSE. So I think it'd be great for K-12 to have .edu accounts.
Yep.
I mean,
Nashua is a .edu. I'm not quite sure when that happened or how. They have been for a long time.
Yeah.
So,
we really felt that the group, and Neal was our representative from our group on the SLTT grant group. And, it felt like they did a really good job trying to identify really easy things that are, they could write the grant quick for and then implement quickly. So I think we were one of, I think it was under 5 states.
Yeah, Missouri was one.
Approval in December. And I think at this point we're just waiting for the feds to release the money down to us.
I just got an email about an hour ago saying they released, FEMA released the money. So
great. So hopefully we'll be able to get that
and
going
in Massachusetts,
soon.
we've applied for a waiver on the deadline. And so we're going to think about it in a few more months. So really jealous.
Yeah, we're really excited. We appreciate what Neal, who's a fellow IT director in New Hampshire, what he was able to do for that, kind of represent us on the group.
He's our cybersecurity guru in the crowd. I think we all do a lot of cybersecurity, but he's heads and shoulders above the rest of us. And it's really good.
Well, we appreciate you guys joining us and taking away from time in sessions, but you guys are definitely doing some amazing things up here in New Hampshire, and we wanted to bend your ear and tell us how'd you do it. So we appreciate your time. Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
we were preparing for a presentation on privacy and realizing that we're the ones talking to the experts on it. So it was a little, what do we say that they don't already know? So congrats.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
We do want to thank our sponsors for this special episode at the New Hampshire CTO Clinic. It's been awesome getting to hang out with Josh and with Mark for the first time in person. We're not just friends via Zoom. We're not just friends via text. The relationship, it's real. It's a real one. So again, thanks to our sponsors. Managed Methods is back. Managed Methods makes securing data and detecting student safety signals in Google, Microsoft 365, and Zoom easy and affordable for district technology teams. Check out Managed Methods. We also want to thank NTP, our newest sponsor. Look them up. NTP. Check out their K-12 cybersecurity solutions. They can give you some special K-12 Tech Talk podcast pricing on antivirus, but you gotta mention us. And we can't forget about Fortinet. Email fortinetpodcast@fortinet.com if you are interested in any of Fortinet's services and products. Reach out to Extreme Networks. That's dmayer@extremenetworks.com. And I think I just said extreme.com when Josh and I were talking. That's extremenetworks.com. Get your Extreme switches and your networking from them. They can bring your network to the next level. Go Extreme. Finally, last but not least, somethingcool.com, a proud sponsor since the beginning. Email sales@somethingcool.com.
So we are back here at the New Hampshire CTO Clinic, the COSIN affiliate here in New Hampshire, and Chris and Mark are both with me now. And we also have guest speaker or guest attendee, Neal. Hey, Neal, how's it going?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Get a little closer to that microphone. There you go.
How's that?
That's much better. So give us an idea of what you like about this conference, what your part is in this conference and planning and all of that.
So what I like about this conference is it's geared towards getting not just the tech directors, but the superintendents and the business managers. Like that's the entire hope and foundation of this conference, to get us in that room talking together and hearing that same message from all of the presenters.
Yeah.
As far as involvement in planning and stuff, I'm a past board member for the New Hampshire chapter, and that's pretty much the extent of that. And they did reach out to me early on, like, "Hey, would K-12 Tech Podcast come and talk with us?"
Of course we will.
Let me reach out.
No, that's cool. And then you and I had met last summer at the MSISAC conference in Baltimore, right?
Yes. Yep.
So everybody here calls you the cyber guy. Like you.
That's all we hear.
That's all we hear. Neal's the cyber guy. Neal's the expert. So give us a little bit of the help that you give school districts or the resource that you are in that cyber realm. Like, are people calling you all the time asking for help, or what's going on there?
Yes. So
The answer to that was yes.
Yes.
Everyone calls you for help.
yes, yes, across the board. So I'm the only cyber certified professional
Okay.
in K-12 in New Hampshire.
Oh, wow.
I also happen to be the director of technology, but that's it. I've got 7 or 8 certificates: the CISSP, the SIN, CISM, the data privacy, and then a bunch of SANS certs as well.
Okay.
So that's sort of where that cybersecurity thing came from.
Sure.
But because of that, the state passed the data privacy law in 2019, and they were looking around and they're like, "We don't know anything about this." I'm in the southwest corner of New Hampshire, like, so nobody comes to see us. Nobody knows we really exist. And I was like, "Well, I've been doing this from 2013. That's when I started doing cyber in K-12." And like, "Oh," and then they sucked me in, and that's it's just grown from there. Really involved with the CTO group here in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Then the state reached out and said, "Hey, can you help us define these standards that the legislature has said that we must develop?" So I helped with Pam McLeod get those squared away. Then they reached out again to me when the SLTT grant came through. They said, "Will you be the K-12 rep so we can get that money going?" And then, GT, Government Tech Magazine, reached out and asked me to be on their board or conference board. And
Oh, wow.
Another conference reached out down in Florida. I don't even remember who they are right now.
Wow, that's cool.
But yeah.
So Pam mentioned something earlier that with the SLTT grant, cyber grant, states buying YubiKeys for public employees. Can you, how did that come about? That's awesome.
Yep. So we got together, all the different reps from the different sectors within the state, and we're like, dollar for dollar, this isn't a lot of money. Like,
Right. Yeah.
What can we do with this to get the most value out of it? So they developed, the .gov in a box, because that doesn't cost them much of anything to do. The state will just give us a gov address and, business cards and letterhead to get it started. And then they're like, well, training. If we can get anybody or everybody trained, even just an intro into cyber, they'll at least have a better understanding, and we can sort of level set across the board. So they've started that route, and that wants to be trained, reach out to the state. Mm-hmm. and tell them what cyber course you want to take, and they'll figure out how to get that paid, get you the
Wow.
voucher, and then eventually even pay for the certification if you want to go
Wow.
that far with it.
One of the things you mentioned too was the .gov address.
Yes.
So what we heard was that there are still some districts in New Hampshire that don't have district-wide email accounts. Is that where it is?
That is where it is. Yes. Wow. Yep. And and it's funny. The real problem is down at the municipality level,
Right.
like the small towns,
Yeah.
where they're all running on Yahoo addresses. The police
Right.
chief is police chief at msm.com. It's crazy. It's so that's the problem they're trying to address.
I wouldn't be surprised if we have them in Missouri as well.
So to our cyber scammers that are listening, what towns are those?
Yeah.
So part of the plan is to get those towns that are running off of personal accounts onto a .gov address.
Correct.
Training for folks and YubiKeys.
Yep.
What's been the response from districts and towns to those kinds of things?
So we're still waiting to get that first check-in to get the YubiKeys purchased.
Yeah.
So that was the third thing, was the
Okay.
YubiKeys. And the thought there was, how can we best facilitate 2FA implementation without telling everybody you got to use your personal device?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
that's the one complaint we hear is, no, I'm not using my personal device. If the state's like, well, we get a huge discount anyways, so we'll just be that purchaser. You tell us how many you want, add 30% because they're going to lose them,
Yeah.
and we'll ship them to you.
That's fantastic.
So I don't want to use my personal account or my personal device for two-step, but also like, do you think you're going to get resistance from towns or schools that don't want to move off of personal email accounts and move on to a state?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Because the motto of New Hampshire still is live free or die.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
So now having the state come in and say you must use this address.
Correct. Yep.
So are you gearing up for that? Have you heard from some districts already?
So the districts are torn, right? We've got this longevity. If we already have our established domain,
Right.
a lot of us
Yes.
are for character domains, right? Like, we don't want to just walk away from that to get some.
Yeah.
So even if you have a domain, you're still migrating over.
You can.
Oh, you can. Okay.
You can. You
Okay.
don't have to.
Okay.
You can.
I keep thinking about email addresses like policechief_2004. And then I keep thinking of some inappropriate ones.
Yeah.
So is it police chief 1 and then the new police chief comes in, they're police chief 2 at yahoo.com, or do they just pass the
Right.
credentials
That-
over?
that's the conversation. Right.
I'm so fascinated.
If they get canned, do they share the password with the next person?
And there are police chiefs or officers handing out business cards that say like at Yahoo.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Amazing.
Amazing. Okay.
Also amazing that was recognized
Yeah.
in 2023 and let's nip it.
Yeah.
Like, let's use this.
Yeah.
I mean, real talk. Let's
yeah.
use this money and fix this problem.
Yeah.
This thing's been lingering around for a while.
No, that makes sense.
But it also outlines, I think it's very common across the United States where you have states that are very, very rural with a mixture of kind of urban, suburban districts. And that's exactly what New Hampshire is. You've got Concord, Nashua, Manchester are the kind of mid-sized, bigger districts. But the majority of your kids go to sub 1,000 student account or districts.
Right.
So we've heard that quite a lot with a very, very kind of decentralized district by district, small district approach from
Yeah.
tech support to security to data privacy. So we talked earlier to Pam and Josh, who talked about how they're really trying to build this consortium around data privacy. Do you feel that same thing can happen with security? Obviously, the two are related. Do you think there's going to be more consortium and kind of group thinking or district, groups of districts thinking about cybersecurity?
I hope so. I think it will get there. We've got nationally, we're starting to see that pick up. We've got K-12-6 that's out there trying to make an effort. We've got MSISAC, right, with the K-12 working group there out there. So I think it will come. I think it's going to be slow.
Yeah.
Because districts still, at the end of the day, don't have those resources. It's still a time commitment.
Yeah.
And if you're a 2 or 3 person department,
Right.
Yeah.
whose time am I taking away, and what
Right.
are they not going to do?
What problems are you not solving because you are focusing on this other bigger problem? Yeah.
Well, but this conference this week is happening in the shadow of your second largest district in New Hampshire getting hit with ransomware. So Nashville was just hit earlier this week. Is that sending waves? It's definitely sending waves around this room. Do you feel it's going to hit superintendents as well?
I think it will, and I think it's already started. When I went into our leadership meeting on Monday, that was the topic of the principals. Like, did you hear what happened in Nashua? Is it going to happen here? Is it, it's...
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it can. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And it will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, Neal, we appreciate your time with us today. We don't want to keep you from any other sessions here this afternoon, so we appreciate it. And thanks for thinking of us and getting us up here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Neal.